When we begin this week's Parsha, we already know that Moses has reached his last day on earth. Such poignant myth and literature, sacred stories that give us pause about how we might wish to be, pray to be, on our last day on earth. And we never know when that's coming. So we are to live every day with the keen awareness that this could be it. And how will our last day be remembered? Well, Moses' last day is pretty extraordinary. He's preparing to leave the physical world and enter into the pantheon of myth. And the choice he offers to his people, to us, then and now, is stark and terrifying. In Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 19, Moses says, "I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life so that you and your children may live." Choose life. Two words that dare us, each one of us, to take a long, hard look at who we are and how we experience our days. Do we choose life? How are we supposed to do that? What did Moses mean by it? A beautiful and sensitive teenager, now a young adult, to whom I am very closely related, was once despairing of a typical but very unsettling adolescent challenge. And he wheeled on me one day with the very astute observation. He said, "I didn't ask to be born." I was rather frustrated with the high-intensity situation, and I reminded him in all honesty, "My dear one, none of us did." And yet, born we all were. I think I can safely make that assertion. None of us chose anything. We came into the world utterly helpless, into a set of circumstances entirely beyond our control. To really get down to it, none of us chose life. But here we are. And if we have been unspeakably fortunate, we have been able to choose perhaps where we live, who we love, what work and what dreams we pursue, and if we're even more unspeakably fortunate, we might have been able to make changes to some or all of that if the need arose, and may yet again. But in the meantime, we may feel like we're constantly at a crossroads. Down one path, we are told, are darkness and pain. Down the other are light and grace. Why would we even think of choosing the former? And yet we do, all of the time. We rush headlong as individuals and as a species into choices that threaten to doom us and the children for whom we are told expressly by Moses to ensure a sustainable future. He knew that we would choose poorly. We already had by then, numerous times since the Exodus. And so in his final hours, he pleads. To choose life can't be just to keep breathing, although to be honest, that alone can be one of the greatest hurdles some of us will ever face. Many of us have on our extraordinary devices applications, apps, that are for meditation, for calming. I recommend the Calm app, and no, I don't get a kickback, but that's the one that I found a couple of years ago, and I've really found it to be most helpful. And I open my Calm app, as I do daily. It congratulates me, by the way, for being anxious. Thanks, Calm. It's proud of me for checking in every day. You've been here 3 weeks in a row, it'll say. Great. And the first thing it says when you open it, before you choose any of your wonderful meditations or whatever it is you want to do, is it says, take a deep breath. I always think to myself, I don't think I've done that yet today. So it reminds me to just breathe. That alone is a choice. A lot goes into even getting to that point. But it's not just to keep breathing, right? And yet, you all know how impossible that is for far too many people in this world. We live with unrelenting anxieties and terrors. It shouldn't surprise us at all that a huge, really horrifying percentage of human beings admit that they wrestle regularly with the temptation to just end it all. So what does Moses intend with the wisdom of 120 incomparable years when he implores the people to choose that path, that one over there, the path of life and blessing? What does he mean? And he tells us, by loving the eternal your God, hearing God's voice, that's the literal translation. Many translations say heeding God's commands, but the literal is hearing God's voice and clinging fully to the eternal. Thus you will have life and length of days. That's the next verse. Now, a very deeply caring adult student recently looked at a similar biblical guarantee as we studied Deuteronomy together in a circle in Los Angeles. She looked at this guarantee, long life for adhering to the mitzvot and holding fast to the eternal, and she really bravely, I thought, but quietly raised her hand and she said, Rabbi, what if I just don't believe that? And I had to let that hang in the air for a while, because there are no guarantees. This grand system of reward and punishment expounded on in Deuteronomy just doesn't bear out. The psalmist certainly knew it. We say it every Friday night. The wicked do rather thrive like grass, and doers of evil don't just seem to flourish, they flourish. Some take comfort in the thought of an afterlife, and they surrender to faith in a supreme being who will one day balance the scales and mete out justice, eventually. But irrespective of our theology or lack thereof, the great architects of Judaism ask us to invest completely and wholly in the possibilities of life right now, today, regardless of our circumstances, and especially when the world and our lives are not as we would wish them to be. After what seemed like an eternity to me, because I don't do that well with silence in a group setting, I ventured a response to that lovely, sincere, lifelong learner. And I'm still working on it for myself, and maybe I always will be. And what I said to her was this. I said, what I think the Torah means is that when we live with a sense of wonder at the miracle of life from wherever or whatever source we believe it comes, when we do our daily tasks, especially the small and mundane ones, with what Heschel called radical amazement at the impossibly intricate web of existence, when our eyes are open to the possibilities of the world and our hearts are open to the pain of others, then our days, no matter how many or how few, seem to be fuller, richer, less fleeting, and maybe even a bit longer. because they're full and they have import, and we made them meaningful. And when we do that, yes, time flies. Oh, friends, we all know that. But the time we will have been given will have been that much deeper. The words choose life are heady ones. For many, they signal a political call to arms or an existential imperative. But the Musar masters teach that life, everyday life, offers an unending succession of what they call bechira moments. Bechira means choice. Moments where we are choosing. Some decisions are clearly and potentially life-altering, but others, often the quietest ones, can impact profoundly the quality and character of our days. Let's pretend we can stop time just for an instant. Let's do it right now. What choices can you identify, from the largest to the most minute, that are lying before you right now? What choices did you make to get here today? Probably 1,000, conservatively speaking. But in your moments that are such a gift, do you choose the way of hurting yourself, others, and the planet? Or do you, as our ancestors hoped, choose life and the promise of regeneration, redemption, and blessing, even if you don't see it yourself? Because even Moses didn't reach that promised land. He reached it, but he didn't go in. So for all the tasks that we won't finish, because our days, no matter how long, are limited, did we choose the path of life every possible moment? The word hayom, today, appears over and over again in Nitzavim. It is the last day that Moses has, and does he ever use it to the full? Tomorrow is not guaranteed. This fleeting and irreplaceable moment is all that we have. How do we choose to honor the life that we are given? Shabbat Shalom.